Hello and welcome to the No Holds Barred Witchcraft podcast. Chris, have you heard of this Poppins Woman?
Don't know who you mean.
A Poppins Woman?
No.
Mary.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yeah, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. It sounds quite atrocious. The Poppins Woman. That Poppins Woman, you know, from 1900s time.
1900 time.
1900s, like the 1900s. Did you ever watch that program where they get a bunch of modern day people and make them live like it's like in the 1900s? Like
No.
No, have you never watched that?
No,
They
I've never
take a
seen
family. They take a family and they put them in the 1900s house. So it's like what they do is, I think each episode, from what I remember, is a different type of house. So they take the family and they'll put them in like a rich person's house. So they live a rich person's life for a week, and then they'll put a family in like a poor person's house. But it's all from the same era as the 1900s.
Okay.
It used to be a TV show. I don't know what it was on. I think it might have been Channel 4, but it was one of those things like Dad and Sarah used to love because they want to be Victorians, don't they?
Okay.
So they can live vicariously through people on television. You'll incidentally hate it because life was pretty crap back then. But yes, 1900s house. Anyway, we're talking about Mary Poppins's. You know,
Okay.
it's a Disney film, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I watched that other one, which was Saving Mr. Banks. That was a really good film, actually. I thought
that was a good show, actually. Really
There
good
was
film.
a Mary Poppins 2. I thought that was absolute trash and shit, and I do not
Did
recommend
you?
anyone watch it. No,
I
actually
liked it. I loved it.
off.
Mary Poppins Returns.
It was bullshit. Don't like it. As far as I'm concerned, it never happened. Like the final season of that show with the dragon.
Oh, Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that one. Never had a final season, did it, Chris? No, it didn't. Right. So, that Poppins Woman. Mary Poppins is, if you don't know, is essentially she's supposed to be a nanny, but a magical nanny. She's like Nanny McPhee, but better. Right?
Politer.
Yeah. So, do you think that Mary Poppins was a witch? Would you class her as a witch or not?
Ooh, that's tricky.
It is a podcast, so don't stay silent for too long. You'll lose subscribers and viewers and listeners.
I don't know. I'm finding it tricky, so I'll think out loud. Sorry.
Right. Good.
I've just spent the last few hours with women talking at me, so being able to use my voice is a strange occurrence for me at the moment.
Ah.
So just trying to get out of that mode. So the reason I'm saying it's tricky is because Mary Poppins comes into life when you need her.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Being there at the right time is a very witchy thing to do.
Yeah.
But actually providing a service that they don't yet know they need, is that a witchy thing?
Well, if you're going by the old-fashioned definition of witchcraft, which is maleficent, baneful, evil magic, Mary Poppins doesn't seem to do a lot of that. But I never notice whether she charges. I presume she gets paid for it. I don't know. Maybe she reaps their soul at the end of the life. I don't know. But I'm going to presume that she's nice. Okay.
She does get paid because she turns up after an advert has been put out for a nanny. So to her, she's received a call.
Yeah, but she will do naughty things. I mean, there was all these gusts of wind, which was of a paranormal nature that blew away all of the other competition nannies, wasn't it? So she will destroy people if necessary in order to get what she wants. She doesn't have a problem with using black magic for new job spells, does she?
But yeah, so I don't know, I'm sitting on the fence with it. Because I'd love to call her a witch. Whereas I don't feel necessarily she is one.
She's a magical practitioner of some description. She doesn't seem to need to use objects and tools. She has that carpet bag thing, right? Like an enchanted carpet bag, but she seems to be able to do it herself. If she sits on a banister, she can go up the banister or down the banister and not fall off, which is magic in itself.
She likes to play with the laws of physics.
Sorry?
She likes physics.
Yeah. She manipulates things.
She's a bit of an alchemist.
Yeah. But not the sort of alchemist that just mixes stuff up. She's like a real-time alchemist in that she can do it straight away. She don't need to wait for something to brew.
No.
Now, do you think...
Which makes me question, which is where I'm sticking. So I haven't mentioned the other side of the argument. So the other side of the argument is that's far more goddessy or trickster spirit than that is necessarily flesh and blood.
Right.
Does that make sense? She bends the laws of physics a little bit too easy to be just any kind of magical practitioner.
Well, do you think that she could be just a Victorian funky shaman? Because like some kind of alchemical shamanistic approach to magic, because I've noticed something which I don't think everyone else has noticed, right? And it's a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. Now, anyone that's done like practical alchemy will know, particularly when it comes to making spagyrics and stuff, that yes, you may distill the an extract, but you're left with the plant matter, which then you're supposed to incinerate and turn into a fine powder. I'm wondering whether that sugar in itself is actually, because she seems to feed the children an awful lot of sugar, and then they go and trip out, Chris. I'm wondering whether she's got shrooms or some other kind of thing going on. That she
you think it's all a trick, eh?
Well, I'm guessing that potentially what may happen is that she just gets all these kids high on something, and then she does kind of like what you see in like these films with the voodoo people, where they like turn people into zombies by blowing that zombie powder in their face. I suppose she just like sees Mr. Banks. She says, "Mr. Banks." He goes, "Yes, Miss Poppins," and then he just blows all this sugar in his face, and then he kind of like rubs his nose and's like, "I can't for the life of me remember what we were talking about, Mrs. Poppins." Because she does manipulate him a lot, doesn't she? She's very manipulative. It's one of my qualities that I like in people. I admire that in her.
I don't know. I think she's so much more than that.
Do you think that she is a corporeal being? Or do you think that she's just some woman that's possessed? Or do you think she's some incarnation of a goddess or something like that? Or do you think that she actually does attend that old-fashioned Victorian nannies school? Because they actually did that. In fact, my stepmother was one of the last people to be trained in the official like old-fashioned nanny schools. Like she had to go to this place in Clifton and they teach you silver service, and you're supposed to, they basically don't train you to work in nurseries like they do nowadays. They train you to go and live with a very affluent family and learn etiquette and stuff.
They still do that. It's still a thing.
That's like butler school. At that point, that's butler school. There's not very like it used to be. That was the only way that you would learn to be a nanny would be to go to one of those places. But now you can do like nursery nurses qualifications and stuff like that at college or uni. They don't teach you what spoon to use in that. Trust me, Chris. I know people that've been on those. They teach you.
Do.
They fucking don't.
I know. Yes, Liam. There is a. They may not do it in the. Are you
telling me that on those nursery nurse qualifications that you go to, that they will put a book on your head and make you walk up and down the room and that if it falls off, they will smack you on the ass with it. Are you telling me they do that still? Because they used to at the Mary Poppins Institute in Clifton.
Liam, what I'm telling you is just because the MVQ exists, which I'm pretty sure it doesn't, Liam. I'm pretty sure they've changed it now. MVQs went out last season.
I don't think they had MVQs, did they? It was a proper.
I'm not talking about just because that. I'm just saying that just because the MVQ now exists doesn't mean that there aren't etiquette schools. I don't think
that's how you do it, is it?
So there are still etiquette schools that do these things in the UK.
Yeah, but they're upper echelon stuff, right? What I'm talking about is that was the only way. It used to be the only way that you would become a nanny would be.
It's not the only way now, but she's not one of the last ones to do it that way.
Yeah,
it still happens,
but it's not the only way. It's not the go-to method.
No.
So if you hire a nanny, the chances of, or a childminder, or you send your kids to nursery, the chances are they haven't graduated from some Mary Poppins school. Whereas it used to actually be like that, because the only people that could afford that were extremely rich, and they expect someone somewhat middle class, I suppose. If they're going to be looking after the children, Christopher, then we can't be having them teaching them any bad habits, can't we?
Liam, you need to remember she's not a nanny. She's a governess.
Is she?
Yes.
Why is it that they advertised for a nanny then?
Because it's an Americanized when they made the movie.
Because Walt Disney don't know what he's talking about. Oh, I see.
She was a governess.
Ah, I see. Right. There is a difference between a governess and a nanny, you're right. But
Very
maybe
much
that was lost on our American friends.
More
it was certainly lost on Walt Disney. But I'm going by the film, you see, because that's what most people will know Mary Poppins is from.
Yes.
Poppins Woman.
That Poppins Woman. But that's also why lots of Americanisms make their way into polluting the English language.
Yes, I hear lots of very politically minded people talk a lot about how our youths and such are being corrupted by the media. You know, it's that gay agenda, Chris, isn't it?
I keep warning you about the power of that pink pound.
Yeah. Right, okay. So she's got magical powers of some description. Now, presumably she learnt them. So did she go for some governess Hogwarts course? Did she graduate from Hogwarts and then go to governess training or something like that? What do you think happened?
I'm still convinced she's a spirit of some kind.
Right.
I can't imagine that there is a magical governess school, mini Hogwarts.
But I like the idea that there would be. I like the idea there is. I mean, if there was, it would be in the Victorian era. I mean, it would be like a slightly better equivalent of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. You know, the Golden Yawn. Imagine if they had like a nanny governess edition, like chapter. That would be so cool, though, wouldn't it? That would be fucking cool.
No, most things have been done. I wouldn't be surprised if in the royal household there still is a magical nanny of some description, but that's because if they were willing to hire John Dee in those days, then I imagine there's still a magical tradition there of hiring magical staff.
Potentially, maybe. I mean, in modern days, their security is a little bit lax, isn't it? But yeah. Okay, so she's got magical powers. They're not just all tripping out. She's not just feeding them shrooms or something, right?
I don't think so. I think it's unfair to call Nanny McPhee a shaman, mainly because she hasn't got testicles.
Not Nanny McPhee. Nanny McPhee's cursed, isn't she? Because of the warts and match. The more they learn the lesson, the prettier she gets. Of course, judging by the end result, they never truly learn their lesson, but they learn it enough.
Leave Emma Thompson alone. She's amazing.
Well, she's not ugly. She's just television ugly, isn't she?
You are so rude.
There's television ugly. You know, like Ugly Betty. Did you ever watch that show? She's not actually ugly. She's television ugly. Because if
As
they
in
put
she's
an actual ugly person on there, then people wouldn't sympathise with it, and the ratings wouldn't be
okay.
as high. They just
Yes,
get like
Liam.
a normal person.
They do tend to take prettier people and therefore normalize them.
Well, they take fairly normal-ish, high average people, and then they make them ugly on camera, is what they normally do. And I'm pretty sure, having talked to people that do work in similar fields to that, that actually it's just human bias in that if they got Ugly Betty and got someone that was genuinely ugly to play her, people wouldn't sympathize with it because people don't sympathize with ugly people. There is a drama teacher that once said, "Acting is about truth, and truth is about beauty." And you, Liam, look like a liar.
Oh, what bullies they must be.
They were, yes. So what is the things that Mary Poppins can do? Because she can jump into alternate realities and also take people in through them, can't she? And then she also seems to be really quite nimble and nifty. She doesn't fall off of the rooftops during the, chimney thing. So is that just ballet school, or is that magical kind of like gravity boots or something?
Well, maybe she's got a cat spirit in her.
Maybe she's got a cat spirit. Also, there's kind of a bit of an animistic vibe going on because she seems to be able to just talk to everything. So like her, I was going to say broomstick, but her umbrella, talks to her. Random things kind of talk to her that wouldn't normally talk to people. So obviously there's some degree of psychic ability or something, but also when they're talking to her, then other mundanes that are around can also hear. So there's a lot of psychic rub-off as well. So she must have some sort of psychic ability, surely. Mr. Chris.
It sounds that way. So I was fixated on the word psychic rub-off. Sorry.
Psychic rub-off, yes. Where you as a psychic hang around with a bunch of mundanes and your psychic nature rubs off on them and starts to activate them. It's probably one of the only real benefits of being in a coven with actual magical practitioners as a beginner, because it does. I've watched it happen loads of times, where you get like really mundane people that don't see, sense and feel anything, but when they're around other magical practitioners, their ability starts to kind of phase in, it kind of turns on. I understand that I said turn off, rub off, turn on all in essentially a paragraph. So maybe that's got you going. I don't know. Is that why you're smudging the place? Getting rid of the negative vibe?
No, I just realised that this is the first time I've switched my laptop on in a few days. Hence the problematic moment earlier. But yes, just in case.
So is Mary Poppins a goodie or a baddie? Did we ever answer that?
I would like to say she's neutral, because you gave me two options and I've got to take a third. But that's just because I suppose you could argue she's leaning on the good, but she doesn't have any problems punishing the bad either. So I kind of, and tricky as she's very much the witch's path in that sense. She's morally grey, which I think is personally a very witchy trait, is to have grey morals.
That's very true.
Because the morals bend in order to fit the situation of the client. And for her, very much you can take it. I suppose that's the bit for me where she is very witchy, in the sense that she takes takes clients, and it's trial by fire. Like, they must get to the end, and eventually they'll realise that they're, better.
There's an interesting one in the Saving Mr. Banks thing, because it says in that the author basically turns around and says, "Oh, you think Mary Poppins has come to save the children," implying that actually she's come for the benefit of the adults. And although she's looking after the children, she's supposed to be teaching the adults a lesson.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one to point out. But she goes where she's needed. But do you think that she has a specific magical role? Because some would say we have a specific magical role, but we use a certain format to go around doing it, hence the witchcraft shop and such. Does she have a specific magical role, do you think? But that she just uses, like, being a nanny in order to fulfill that role?
I suppose. I don't know, because that's always my thing with it, is there are lots of children that could probably benefit down the road at the workhouse, whereas
she doesn't deal with the children. She fixes the adults, doesn't she? She's there to keep the capitalist machine working, because old Mr. Banks, he was meant to join take his seat at the Illuminati and rule the world, surely. That's what Mr. Banks was supposed to do, no?
Yeah. That's true. But she made him learn morals.
She made him learn morals. So maybe she's more manipulative than we actually think. Also, how many people actually realise that Dick Van Dyke actually played Bert, the chimney sweep, but he also played the bank manager man?
Yes.
A lot of people don't know that. It took me years and years and years to work that out, even though it's in, like, the end credits.
Oh, wow.
But now I've seen it, I can't unsee it,
Oh, I think I'm just used to, it's too many years of Diagnosis Murder. I can spot Dick Van Dyke anywhere.
So how does one, next time they're in the city of Bath, Chris, where you used to live?
Yeah.
When the street performers and that, you get the ones that make the pretty pictures on the paving slabs out of chalk. How does one jump into the painting or into the picture without jumping on the picture and being chased away by said street artist because you've just ruined his picture? Is there a technique people need to use? Because this is high jeopardy, Chris. If they're to go out and practice this, they cannot afford to get it wrong. And if they do get it wrong, they best be hoping that they can run faster than the street artist. So what techniques do you use for, jumping in?
Well, astrally would be the obvious one. So with that, you wouldn't need even to remember what the painting looks like. You just need to remember its location. Or, some people need a few more, what they called training wheels. So maybe snap a picture before and then taking that picture home. So they've got something to focus on. Me, like I said, I would go geographically. So probably use the location rather than necessarily what it looked like. Then there's all the rest, all the things you accused her of at the beginning of this. So there's shrooms and other psychogenic, that can be used to assist, shall we say. And obviously there's the more traditional hedge riding ways, as you mentioned, a broom.
So do you think she lubes up her umbrella with flying ointments? Is that how you think she does it?
Maybe.
Do you think Lady Poison can fly with an umbrella? We might have to ask her if she's got a flying umbrella.
Well, I know a different TV show, different movie, but that's one of my favourite parts of practical magic.
Well, in Sabrina the Teenage Witch, they used to use vacuum cleaners, didn't they? Because they're like the new brooms.
Yeah. Or flying cars. They got some flying cars in that as well, hadn't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved in practical magic at the end when they jump off the roof.
Okay. So I thought that our tarot readers out there, this should be a technique that they should be technically really good at, because you talk about opening cards up. So you look at the tarot card and fall kind of into that world. So if you're looking at the Fool and it's the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, then you've got that jolly idiot with his little knapsack and a dog about to walk off a cliff potentially. Opening that card up so you kind of zoom into it and then you're in that world, fall into it and see other things. You know, you see bigger parts of the landscape and other things that's going on, and maybe it's moving because you're there. I find that it's like that. I think that tarot is one of the good ways in which you can practice that. But yeah, people talk about opening up cards, but I never see people using things like that to practice opening up a picture or opening up a realm, because you could do that with runes, but most people would really struggle with that because they're not very visual, hence why they're so secret.
Yeah.
But we've given homework before to people. I think we've even given hieroglyphics, haven't we? I'm sure we had one with that.
Yes. We've given all sorts of things over time. Because we like people to use that as much as possible, in order to kind of push people's psychic ability, like you say, that kind of rub off. But you can't always rely on that, which is why I hate coven work, generally speaking. But you've always got that lowest common denominator part. But anyway. So that's how practice makes perfect, with working with as many different kinds of locations. I've got a horrible deck of cards. I don't know if I've shown you them, Liam. They're Phoenix ones that are designed to do exactly that for past life regression.
Okay.
Where there's a series of drawings of different periods, and I hate them because the cards are painted with kind of what feels like historical artifacts, as a trying to give you a linchpin to kind of bounce from. But the problem with that is that sends me to a place rather than access to that potential, shall we say, of those particular time periods. So I find the object quite distracting. So therefore the cards are difficult. I just don't like using them. Whereas you'd think someone would do something slightly more abstract.
Yeah.
In order to unfocus your mind, in order to allow that to happen, and allow you to kind of, work through whatever regression problems you've got. But they're not tarot cards. They're kind of they're
sounds like some sort of oracle deck.
Yeah, but they're not even like that, because they're not for readings.
Yeah.
They're purely for kind of meditative practice. But yeah, strange.
Right, well, that's it for the regular edition of the No Holds Barred Witchcraft podcast. You can join us on the Thoth Witchcraft Patreon for an extended edition of this episode and a bunch of others, but you've got to pay for it, guys. We need the monies. We want to be rich witches, Chris, don't we?